New cars, plenty of them. Old cars, well, they can be way more interesting. When someone gives you the opportunity to drive a true modern classic, well, you just gotta take it. This is the 1999 Honda Civic Si. Now, like today's Civic Si, this was the performance-oriented Civic. It was also a sleeper choice. You really had to know what you were looking at to fully appreciate it. Certainly more than the current car. There's no wing, there's no extra venting, no. Besides the VTEC emblem on the side and this exclusive electric blue paint job, most people just think it's a normal Civic. But if you know what it is, you know that it is special underneath. It all starts with the engine, a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder that, for the most part, well, that's what Hondas came with. But various improvements. It had a larger tuned exhaust, but most importantly, it had VTEC, one of the earlier mainstream Hondas to get it. Variable valve control, essentially. But what it allowed it to do was rev way higher than a normal engine. This goes to 8,000 RPM, and as a result, it allowed it to make 160 horsepower. And when you do the math, yep, that's 100 horsepower per liter. Now, at the time, it went from 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds. That was pretty good. It was basically the same time as a V6 powered VW GTI that had way more power, way more torque, and cost a lot more money. This went for around 17 grand at the time. Now, the gearbox, just like today's Civic Si, was only a manual transmission. This is a 5-speed manual, and I tell you, you could put this into any new car today and it would immediately be considered one of the top 10 best. It is absolutely brilliant, both in terms of the gearbox, but as well as the ease of clutch modulation and the ease of heel-toe downshifting. Future VTEC cars could actually be a little difficult. I had an Acura TSX. It was harder to drive that car smoothly. This couldn't be easier. So, in all honesty, when you're just driving normally, this car does not feel fast or particularly special. It just feels like kind of what you'd expect a regular economy car in the 90s to feel like. But if you notice here, the engine's rather loud, but I'm only revving to 4,500 RPM. Remember, this goes to 8,000. So you really actually do need to rev the snot out of it to really appreciate it. And when you're in a road like this and you can keep it on the boil and you keep rowing this phenomenal gearbox, it comes to life and you just get it. Now, when you're going fast, it's important to remember that this car did not have anti-lock brakes. That was only an option on the EX. Even at the time, I thought that was a little questionable. But on the upside, the pedal feel from the brakes are absolutely phenomenal. Now, it wasn't just the engine, no. The suspension was improved. It had progressive valve shocks. It had a beefed up front and rear anti-roll bar. There's a strut tower brace clearly visible under the hood, and for wheels, they were alloy and measured 15 inches. Like all Civics, though, from this era, this has a double wishbone front suspension, which is more sophisticated than the McPherson strut suspension that would come later. And it's a sophistication that you really can feel in this car. It's 20 years old, but its ride and handling are really impressive, genuinely by modern standards. Now, it does roll quite a bit through corners, but it does feel as sophisticated as its equipment would imply. Now, to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in the steering in this car. It's pretty slow, very numb on center, and the turn-in's not very precise. It does not in any way feel sporty or encourages you to drive hard at lower speeds. However, when you really start to hurry the car along, and frankly, you turn through that initial numbness, it does get a lot better. You do feel more of the road. it does get a little better. So just yet another element of this car that just really proves how much better it is once you actually start to drive it hard. And you need to. Otherwise, it's a little underwhelming. As you can see here, this is pretty standard 1999 Honda Civic fare. There's not a lot that's special or different from one of the other upper trim levels of the Civic at the time. However, you do see there in the gauges the 8,000 RPM indicated there, as well as the SI badge. You also have, let's take a look at the super 90s multicolored upholstery. It's kind of mouse furry stuff here, and of course, since it's a 90s Honda, you can see through the head restraint. Now let's take a closer look at these seats. Now the thing that really impressed me when I got in here, it has 8-way manual adjustable seats, hence those two knobs. That one sends the front up and down, and that one sends the back up and down. Today's 2020 Civic Si doesn't have this. It's just 6 ways. It only has basically that knob there. The steering wheel, it is wrapped in leather, as is the shifter for the 5-speed manual transmission. You can see here it's quite a long stick, and still a reach down for you. The one in the Civic, the current one, is about, like here. Let's take a closer look at some of the very 90s Honda controls here. To activate the cruise control, you first press that button and then control it with these buttons over here. The horn, they're buttons. You can't just whack the center of the wheel. That will do nothing. Of course, the sunroof control is over here. Why would you put it over there? That would make no sense at all. No, it's down here, and it would stay like that well into the thousands. And you have a little coin tray here that was quite ubiquitous. Now, despite obviously not having cell phones be a thing when this car was designed, there's an awful lot of places to store one. You can put it there, fits perfectly, an iPhone 6, how about that? Down here, I mean, car companies are basically putting bins exactly like this in cars now, once again. Hell, there's even one right there in between the seats. This also has some cup holders, which, I have a bottle here, will go, actually, keep a modern water bottle in place for moving. If you try putting it there, yep, that's not going to work well. Now, this may be just a plain radio faceplate with only a CD player and an AM/FM tuner, but it is so beautifully simple. There are 6 preset buttons. You can change channels by pressing tune or skip. There's a volume knob. If you want to change your tones, you just pull that out there and you adjust it. And if you've been in a Honda in recent years, specifically with its touchscreen in the Civic, well, you'll know how much of a breath of fresh air this would be. Now, if I'm honest, there are some other foibles. The seats, for instance, there is no lateral support in this car. You are flopping all over the place. Hope you have some good core strength. And although the seats adjust commendably, my legs are very supported, more so than the current car. You're also kind of sitting up high in this car. It's a little bit of an unusual driving position, which is the answer to why I am wearing a hat right now, because otherwise my quarantine long hair would be constantly grazing the headliner here. So what have I learned about the 99 Civic Si? Well, 20 years ago when this car was new, I was also a new driver. I had just gotten my driver's license, and at the time I thought, what's the big deal? This doesn't have a lot of power, kind of looks the same as a Civic, it doesn't even have ABS. What's the big deal? Well, after today, I have learned that you really have to drive it hard to appreciate it. You have to zing it past 6,000 RPM to get that full VTEC Honda engine experience, to make it actually feel as fast as it can be. You have to go quick on a winding mountain road to really appreciate the brilliance of its chassis, of the suspension, and the improvements made to it for the SI model. And that's when you get it.